Hey guys, I'm Greg Collins with LineMount.com. Today we're at the LineMount office and we're discussing some of the broader concepts behind the development of the AR-15 rifle that took place in the 1950s and led to what we call retro style AR-15s like the ones we see here. So the origins of the AR-15 start with the Armalite Corporation, which was founded in 1954 as a subsidiary of the Fairchild Engine and Airplane Company. Fairchild was looking to diversify its holdings from just aviation, and its president at the time was actually a big gun guy. The concept behind this Armalite subsidiary was that it would be focused on design of firearms and then would license or sell those designs out to firearms manufacturers who would in turn manufacture those rifles at scale. Armalite didn't want to do the full-scale manufacturing for a few reasons, mostly the cost of scaling up. Anyway, one of the primary objectives of the Armalite Corporation was to take advantage of the advances in aluminum metallurgy and plastics that had occurred in the post-World War II era and into the 1950s. In a few areas, they took it a little too far. So, for example, the early AR-15s actually had aluminum barrels that had steel liners, and that seemed like a good idea on paper until they exploded during testing. Anyway, that's for a different video. So the creation of the AR-15 involved the incorporation of a number of new ideas that were floating around in the post-World War II era and into the 1950s. The most important were the following three ideas. The first were advances in materials. So the 1930s and 40s saw significant leaps forward in metallurgy, particularly in the area of aluminum, as the upper receiver of the AR-15 and the lower receiver are all aluminum. The mass production of aluminum products during World War II led to innovations in the casting and machining techniques that helped bring down the cost of aluminum parts. So along with the advances in metallurgy were advances in plastics. And there's a lot of plastic used on the AR-15, and particularly plastics that could stand up to higher temperatures, but were also durable and could be produced at lower cost. The second innovation was the Johnson rifle rotary bolt and barrel extension concept. So the Johnson rifle, which was developed in the late 1930s, used a rotary bolt and barrel extension concept. And what it does is, by confining the high pressure forces generated during firing to the bolt and the barrel extension, the heavier materials like steel that can handle those pressures are needed only in specific areas. So meaning the bolt and the barrel extension, that's the only place you need to use steel. So that means you can use the lighter and more easily machined materials like aluminum on the other parts of the firearm, and that optimizes weight and manufacturing efficiency. Now, the third concept incorporated into the AR-15 was the idea of intermediate caliber rounds. So, following World War II, there was a big debate amongst militaries all over the world for what caliber should be used in the basic infantry rifle. And there was a growing belief that the full power cartridges that had dominated amongst militaries since the end of the 19th century didn't really make sense anymore. So, for example, of these full power rounds, in the US, we were using 30-06. The Germans were using 8mm. The Russians, 7.62 by 54, and the British, the 303. Armies in World War II were finding that almost all combat engagements were taking place at less than 300 yards, usually much closer than that. So this meant that the extra power that came with the high power rounds was unnecessary and wasteful, because the more powerful the round, the fewer rounds each individual soldier could carry. So during World War II, the Germans had actually begun to move away from the full power rifle rounds that had dominated amongst armies since the end of the 19th century. They start replacing their full power 8mm rifles with the medium power 7.92 by 33 Kurtz, which was used in their most advanced infantry rifle, the STG-44. Now, This medium caliber concept was subsequently copied by other militaries, including the Soviet Union, who started to move to the medium caliber 7.62 by 39, which became the standard for the AK-47. Now, the US took the intermediate cartridge idea even further and adopted the .223 Remington round, which is later standardized as 5.56 millimeter round, which we all know is used on the AR-15. Now, this round was even smaller than the Germans or the Russians' intermediate cartridges. It was the 5.56 round is a better balance between weight and recoil, and it allows for faster follow-up shots and also controllability during full auto. And because it has a higher velocity than the full power rounds, it's flatter shooting. Now, the term flatter shooting is a little confusing because, let me clarify what that means. According to physics, all objects, regardless of weight, fall at the same speed. So if the bullet is moving faster, you don't have to compensate for elevation as much for the same distances as you do for rounds that are moving slower, such as the older full power rounds. This means you don't have to spend as much time training new recruits on how to manage elevation according to how far away the targets are. Now, all of these broader concepts were incorporated into the AR-15 rifle. Anyway, if you enjoyed this look at the broader ideas behind the AR-15's design, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching.